President Cyril Ramaphosa has appointed Barbara Creecy as the new Transport Minister. There are calls by stakeholders in the industry for continuity in the department. Creecy becomes the 11th minister in the portfolio since the dawn of democracy. Joining us is Dr. Mathetha Mokonyama, who's the CEO of South African Transport Conference. Doc, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I guess the first things first, Barbara Creecy is no novice to the world of politics and governance. She served as an MEC in Gauteng and of course, as a minister before being moved to Transport Department in the Department of Environment, Forestry and Fisheries. What does your organization make of the new minister?
Good evening, Massa. The new minister brings with her a wealth of experience and a very recent experience in environmental affairs, as well as the deputy minister, Mr. Hlengwa, from the Standing Committee on Public Accounts. They bring, very, good experience with them into a portfolio that is, quite complex. As the conference that, brings together various stakeholders in Southern Africa, we wish the minister and the deputy minister well, and we hope that we will work well with them in their tenure.
There have been some concerns raised in terms of continuity. When we're looking at that transport department, as I mentioned as well in that intro, 11 ministers since 1994. But I think for me, more importantly so, since 2018, apart from Minister Fikile Mbalula, who was there from 2019 till 2023, we haven't seen a minister occupy that role for more than a year, whether it was Joe Maswanganye or it was Bladen Zimande, and now, of course, the outgoing minister, Ms. Chikunga, who's now been moved as well. Does that leave a bit of concern for your organization as well, this pattern of non-consistency and continuity?
Yes, continuity, does affect the performance of the department. It's a department that is responsible for about 12 entities, including the likes of PRASA, Airports Company of South Africa, Road Accident Fund, and many others. It's a very complex portfolio. In fact, if you look at the budget, about 80 billion, annual budget that the department has, the bulk of it, 98%, essentially goes to these agencies as well as provinces and local government, municipalities. So what it means is that you need to have capacity to be able to monitor these entities closely so that they are accountable for all that budget that is distributed to them. So with lack of poor continuity, that essentially is compromised, and you've seen it very clearly, that happening with the likes of PRASA.
And you speak of those 12 entities, which are quite key as well, including PRASA and the likes of AXA and the likes. For your organization, before the president announced that it would be Barbara Creecy who will be leading this portfolio, who were you hoping for? Were you concerned at all that it could be somebody else? And once you found out that it is this minister indeed, was this something that you then embraced?
Look, we welcome the decisions made, by the president. We don't get ourselves involved in those, discussions, but we do welcome, the appointment of the minister, Ms. Barbara Creecy. She brings with her, vast, experience in the field. I mean, if you look at her immediate experience in environmental affairs, with the greening of the transport sector, there's an opportunity to generate a lot more new jobs in that space. We need to be able to design infrastructure that is resilient. Recent, extreme weather events in KwaZulu-Natal, in Cape Town and so forth, require us to make sure that the design standards, construction standards, monitoring standards that we use are responsive, to those challenges. So she will understand, that, those issues very well. And also some of the international agreements that we have, entered into in the maritime space. In fact, in the conference, we have a special session just on maritime, unpacking opportunities available in the maritime sector.
Speaking of the maritime sector, there'll be other challenges as well, when we also think about our rail sector as well, which is in dire condition too. What should be prioritized when we're talking about transport infrastructure?
There's no new money, available. So we need to learn to work with what we have to do essentially more. So asset preservation, the assets that we have, we need to be able to maintain them. We've got a very good network, a very competitive network. And if we take care of that network, it will take care of our economy, because transport essentially carries most of the GDP of the country. Another thing is skills, something that we're focusing on closely as the Southern African Transport Conference. A survey done not so long ago in cities, metropolitan municipalities, indicated that half of them were not confident that they could implement their own plans. And when asked why can't you implement, they indicated that they don't have the capacity, to implement. So making sure that we create institutions that are, responsive, that got the capacity to respond and also agile. But then also last is essentially to be creative in how we work together with other role players, because there's no new money. So we need to be able to optimize the resources that we have. For example, Home Affairs, the smart ID card, that is there. Should we have a different driver's license from the smart ID card, and the expenses of printing these, ID cards, and the single machine that we are reliant on, in the country? Couldn't we use that smart ID card, to incorporate all of these, functionalities of a driver's license and digitize, the functions? So we need to work better, with what we have, the resources that we have.
I mean, also, Dr. Mokonyama, when we think about the state of our roads as well, and how they've deteriorated over the years too, it goes back to, what we were talking about earlier in terms of the rail network in this country, which can be used to transport goods and goods as well across the country. But so many of the rail networks have collapsed and failed. And now we're seeing a huge number of trucks on our roads as well. We've seen some of the repercussions that are negative of that too. How confident are you that the 7th administration, through the minister and the deputy minister, will be able to fix this rail network challenge, which also has a trickle effect on the quality of our roads?
Well, we do have skills in South Africa to be able to manage the recovery of the infrastructure. We just need to make sure that we eradicate or remove the barriers of bringing many of the skills, on board. We're able to deliver, the 2010 World Cup as a country, and we did so much in terms of infrastructure rollout, in the past. One of the key impediments that we have is around procurement. The procurement, regulation systems that we have. We need to, ask questions about the extent to which they are fit for purpose for the kind of work that lies ahead. So if we, have that, conversation with National Treasury to say that, aren't we complicating, how we procure? Could we simplify? How do we procure innovation? We've got, as part of the conference, documented technologies that could be used to reduce the cost of, maintaining, roads. But they need to be specified in procurement. And often, procurement systems are not able to, specify, innovation. So we're stuck with old technologies. So one of the key things, if we're able to address, impediments, procurement impediments, will definitely go far.
Yeah, and in that breath as well, why would you say, how important are these public-private partnerships too, specifically for this department?
Quite essential. As I indicated earlier, there's no more new money. So we need to work with what we have better. There's an example that we're unpacking where municipal airports, municipal airports essentially lying, underutilized, and through public-private, partnerships, and through increasing demand, for freight, fast-moving, goods. Those airports, some of those airports are being used, for that purpose. That is one of the things that have, for example, rescued, Ethiopian, airlines. They during COVID, they went, into the freight, market, seeing that the passenger market, was declining. But we have that opportunity in SADC to partner in order to, open up the network so that it enables, business. And a lot of, what needs to happen with, railways. A lot can happen if we bring, partnerships between the public and the private sector. In fact, one of the things that the sixth administration was working on as part of the transport portfolio is the public-private sector, participation framework. So it will be something that would need to be fast-tracked, early on, by the minister.
And hopefully it's one of those projects that will be continued as well by the new minister. But thank you so much for joining us this evening on News at Prime. Really appreciate it. That was Dr. Mathetha Mokonyama, who's the CEO of the South African Transport Conference.